Welcome back to the world headquarters of Giant Globes Inc., where today we're going to have a deep dive into tape, namely sticky tape. This video is for those of you who think there are just three kinds of tape: Scotch, packing and duct. When I'm doing special effects, I use a wide range of sticky surface tapey kind of things, and when I was cleaning out my tape drawer I found I had around 60 different kinds, not including duplicates. So, first of all, before we get into specifics about any kind of tape, the boring part. Preparation. Do what your parents said. Prepare for the test. Don't start a land war in Asia. And clean and dry and grease-free surfaces make best sticky places. I'm not sure your parents said that, but they should have done. Second thing about tape in general is it's much better if you cut it than do what I have been known to do. Tear it with your teeth, because obviously your greasy fingers and spit and ragged edges don't make for good sticky. Thirdly, most of the tape we're going to talk about today is what's called pressure sensitive, meaning it's got a sticky side, and if you lay it on lightly it comes off very easily. If you lay on the tape lightly and then use a J roller, this is actually not a J roller but very like it, to expel all the air and make sure there's a really good contact, it will stick 5 times stronger. You don't need to use one of these. You can use, this is a burnisher that came with a shelf paper. So it's got a slightly flexible edge on one side, thunder starting, and a rigid side as well, depending on what kind of tape you're using. This is a professional burnishing tool. It's got a leather surround on one edge and it's quite rigid, very straight, and again you can squeeze the bubbles out of vinyl with this, or you can use it to burnish down tape. You can also use any number of spatulas, scrapers, squeegees, or the old-fashioned way, the back of your fingernail. Just burnish all the air bubbles. You'll be able to see how it changes as you do it. You can also use a credit card. If you have the opposite problem, where you have too much stick, which when we're talking about duct tape you'll see how much stick you can get these days, you can derate the adhesive by doing this. The more you do this, the more lint it will pick up, and that'll get in the way of the glue. So if you're sticking to a sensitive paint or drywall surface, when you stick it on, it won't come off and destroy your project. Oh, and lastly, do the right thing. Anytime you use a piece of tape, just fold the end over just a little bit, and that way nobody needs to worry about where the end of the tape is. You can see it. This is especially true with clear tapes, where you've all done this and trying to find the end of the tape. Just fold the end piece over, and the next person, which is probably going to be you, will thank your earlier self. Also do this if you're going to be putting tape around something. Again, if it's a temporary fix, if there is a little tail on the end of it, it makes it very easy to get off. If it's going to go on permanently, obviously you don't need to do that. So, let's move to specific tapes, shall we? We're going to start with the Feek and Weeble, weak and feeble tapes, namely masking and painter's tapes. So let's start with the crappy stuff. This is basic masking tape. It's pretty sticky. If you stick this to paint, it's probably going to peel the paint off. It's not rated for how long it's going to stay on. This is for masking. This is actually better for if you wanted to stick a piece of paper to my chest. That's the kind of tape you'd use. It's like layout tape, but it will destroy surfaces. So don't use that stuff. Same goes for these. These are very low quality white paper tapes. Most good masking tape, and there is a reason you use good masking tape, because you will have spent hours and hours and hours filling nail holes, sanding, doing drywall, mudding, whatever. And then you're going to spend hours and hours and hours painting, and if when you pull off the tape the paint has got underneath this, you're going to be very unpleased, because your eye will be drawn to that surface, to that imperfection every time you look at it. So just spend a couple of bucks more. Buy name brand. This is Scotch brand. They're the leaders in this kind of tape. Or if you're getting really fancy, frog tape comes in green. This is slightly superior, slightly more expensive. It has all kinds of paint blocking technology, as they say, to stop the paint getting underneath. But the key is whatever size you buy, whatever color you buy, whether it's green or blue, spend a little bit more money and don't just get this kind of tape, because you will regret it. If you need to paint around corners, here's a good example. This is regular blue tape. You can see it's kind of messed up and doesn't make a very angular, very tight angle curve. This is crepe tape, and as the name suggests, it's completely crepe. It's actually good at going around corners, but it's crepe at stopping paint getting underneath it, because it's kind of like a bandage, and it has lots of ruffles in it, and the ruffles are what allows it to spread around a 90-degree curve like that. But the paint will get in there. Just an option. You can obviously buy tape in from like 1/2 inch up to, this is 2-inch tape. Buy the size you want. If you need bigger than that, you can buy this stuff, which is basically got kind of like post-it material on the top section, so it makes it slightly sticky. And the bottom section is not sticky at all. You can also buy, which I don't have any of here, something similar to this, but instead of having an unsticky side to it, it has a sheet of plastic which unfolds. So it's like pre-assembled, so you can mask off large areas, floors, for example, or something where there's an uneven surface where you need to drape plastic. You can get the plastic already attached to tape. That's quite useful stuff. The reason I don't have any here is because I've used it all doing exactly what it was made for. The main takeaway here is spend a little bit more money. It doesn't have to be frog tape, it doesn't have to be any brand tape, but just get tape that somebody's willing to put their name on, their logo on, willing to put their money where your mouth is. No, willing to put their mouth where your money is. Something like that. Moving on to Scotch Tape. We're calling it Scotch Tape, it's a brand name, don't sue me, 3M. Only thing to say about that is about Scotch Tape or gift tape, wrapping paper tape, is the invisible kind that has a matte finish, which looks like it'll be more visible, but when you attach it to something, as we can see here, it looks quite visible there, but when you burnish it down, that's not a very good burnishing job. Probably not very good tape. But my point here is always buy it when it's in a dispenser. And if you have one of these desk dispensers, I advise you to upgrade it a little bit. This one, when you pulled it like this, the whole thing would slide forward. Even though it was felt fairly heavy, it only had sand in it. So what did I do? Drilled a dirty great big hole in it, poured the sand out, filled it full of lead shot, and hot glued the whole back shut. Now it weighs about 3.5 pounds, and even on a dirty surface, I can do this. And it's a good indication of burnishing. This tape is very susceptible to this. You can see how clear it becomes even with a half-assed burnishing job like that. So use one of these. Again, just don't buy the cheap tape. You're going to be picking it, trying to find the edge. You'll find the edge, you'll pull it, it'll break, it'll go down to a little narrow, hateful stuff. Okay, moving on to its big brother. Packing tape. I'm going to sound like a broken record here, but buy decent quality packing tape. Same reason you'll never find the edge, it won't work. You'll use twice as much, so are you saving any money if you buy the cheap stuff? And your packages may come undone, and the glue may come loose, or go yellow in the sun and crack off. Anyhow, so buy big rolls of this. Don't buy the little skinny ones that are cheap, because look how many yards you're going to get per dollar. That's the only way you can tell. But get nice thick stuff. I don't normally recommend duck brand tapes. They make some terrible duct tape, but their heavy duty clear packaging tape is just fine. Any 3M tape is fine. Tartan is their lowest brand. And the key is, get an applicator. these little hand applicators came free with a roll, and they're worth every single penny you paid for them. So don't bother with that. Buy yourself. This is a tape gun and has a number of nice features on it. One is it retains that little spring-loaded metal bit there, keeps the tape from disappearing into the gun. And when you get to the end of it, this burnisher, which is pushing down the tape onto the material, when you pull on it, I don't know if you can see this, little teeth stick out only when you do this, which is the natural action of when you get to the end, you push down, do that, and the tape separates and you're ready to do it again. That's why it's called a tape gun, because it dispenses tape super fast. Normally they're between 10 and 15 bucks, and generally you get about 4 bucks of tape with it, free. So buy one of these. So again, not much to say about packing tape except for buy big rolls, buy thick rolls, buy name brands, buy the premium. Doesn't have to be ultra premium. For example, this is book tape. This is a very old roll of book tape, but this is for assembling books or repairing books. And this is way thicker than you need. So regular heavy duty strapping, packing tape, not strapping tape, because that's next. Strapping tape is this, which is packing tape, but with little threads of polyester stuck in it. And the reason for that is it makes it almost impossible to cut through sideways, which if you're using a key to open a box, it's going to make people very, very unhappy if you use this. This is really only for strapping something shut. No real need to use it unless you're sending cardboard boxes overseas on a ocean liner and they're going to go in steerage or something. And what is next is my favorite, double stick tape, which allows you to pick things up with your fist. So we're going to start with the thinnest kind, which is really not a tape at all. It's called adhesive transfer tape, and what it is, it's the adhesive without the tape. So you can see here I'm pulling off what is it's just the glue. The brown paper is just the wrapper, and so you can, because it's so thin, it's really quite difficult to work with, but you can stick paper to things and it's so thin that you won't really notice it's there. You can also get very thin double stick tape. This has got stick on both sides. You can also get paper tape, double stick paper tape. This is very useful, often used by woodworkers to temporarily affix a jig to a routed table or a CNC platen or something like that. The idea is it's removable, that's why it's very skinny and thin. It doesn't affect the width of the work too much by being thick. Once we get past that, we get to the solid double stick tapes. A quick tip, if you're ever using double stick tapes, try not to cut off the tail. Leave yourself a tail, otherwise you'll be picking at the edges of here, trying to get the wrapper off with an X-Acto knife like a caveman. So always leave the tail and the tape itself at a different length, that way you can pull it off. So these are clear tapes. These are fairly thin. They're very, very sticky. Whoops, didn't mean to do that. Put that back. This is very similar. This is carpet tape. You can imagine what you do with that. Stick down carpets. You can stick down rugs too. But again, very sticky. It will, well worth leaving a tail attached to it so you can get to the end of it. Saves you a lot of trouble. These do get fairly thick. You can get fairly thick tapes which have a vinyl or similar, some kind of rubbery plastic in the middle, and then glue either side of it. And that takes us to foam tape. And why would you use foam tape rather than a solid tape like one of these? Well, you might want to use it as a spacer. All of these are foam tapes. So they will adapt much more readily to a rougher surface. in a video earlier, the one on adhesives, I stuck a brick to a balloon in that order. I picked up the brick by holding the balloon, and to do that I used a layer of this on the brick and a layer on the balloon, and then squished them together, and the combination of those two allowed me to stick a brick to a balloon. They come in a variety of strengths. Again, you get exactly what you pay for. These are tapes you might hang up a poster with, and as a result they are very, very light duty, not very impressive. And again, you just get what you pay for. Scotch brand, again, I hate to advertise for 3M when they're not paying me any money. I never asked, but they make the best double stick tape there is, which leads us to the king and queen of double stick tapes, which is VHB tape. It stands for Very High Bond. It is, of course, a product of Minnesota Mining and Manufacturing Corporation, 3M, or Scotch, or however they like to call themselves in North America. And these would be these tapes. This roll of black foam, it's very dense foam. The foam itself between the two layers of adhesive is incredibly strong, but it's the adhesive that really sets these apart. This probably cost me $35. They make them in a variety of types. They make non-foam VHB tape as well. This looks like it's red, but in fact, if you look, you can see right through it. It's clear when you remove the red wrapper. And this is incredibly strong. Even on the edges where there's no adhesive, it's sticky. You can buy, say, different colors, different thicknesses, different widths, up to, well, for example, this roll probably cost me $90, and I've only used a little bit of it, but 3M say this tape will replace welding or mechanical fixtures. So screws, rivets, bolts. You can use this instead, permanently, outdoors, in weather. Parts of aeroplanes are held together with this stuff. It is truly magnificent. I can't emphasize that enough. The only downside, of course, is once you've stuck something together and you've waited more than about a quarter of a second, they are not coming apart. You physically have to tear the foam filler in two pieces to get it apart. So it'll destroy bits of wood, it'll pull the grain out of wood, it'll tear off paint in a heartbeat. But it is marvelous, marvelous stuff. VHB by 3M. Again, I'm expecting a royalty check in the mail anytime soon. While I'm shilling for 3M, which seems to be the main point of this video, you're probably might be familiar with these Command adhesive hooks. Again, it's foam double stick tape, but they very cleverly have made the substrate that the adhesive is attached to stretchy. So as a result, when you pull on the tab at the bottom, it stretches and it releases the bond between the wall and the fixture. And you can reuse them a few times, and they're very easy to get off without leaving a mark. So if you're renting, you don't have to put holes in the walls to hang up your pictures. Quite useful. And we're back from the future, where I was editing this segment and it turned out to be about 40 minutes long, which is probably 20 minutes too long for any individual part. So we're going to cut it here, and we'll be back when you've regained your appetite for information about tape. See you in a minute.